students, welcome back. In the biological classification video, we learned about the 5 kingdom classification of Whittaker. In this video, we will explore plant kingdom in detail. There are many types of classification systems, artificial systems, natural systems, phylogenetic systems, etc. Artificial systems were based on the vegetative characters of plants, like the colors, number and shape of leaves, type of stems, roots, etc. Linear system of classification comes under this category. These systems separated closely related species as they were based on only a few characteristics. For example, some members of Monera and Protista were earlier grouped under the plant kingdom as they possess a cell wall. However, they do not have any other similarity with plants. Hence, they were moved out of the plant kingdom in later classifications. Not only that, they gave equal importance to vegetative and sexual characteristics. That is not fair, right? The reason being, vegetative characters can change according to the environment. Hence, the classification can go wrong. Then comes the natural system of classification. This includes both the external and internal features of organisms, like the ultrastructure, that is the arrangements of cells, anatomy, that is the structure of cells and tissues, then embryology, that includes all the processes in the development of an embryo, then phytochemistry, that is the study of chemicals present in the plants. Such classification for flowering plants was given by George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. Presently, there is phylogenetic classification systems based on evolutionary relationships between various organisms. This classification assumes that organisms belonging to the same taxa or same group have a common ancestor. There are 3 approaches in phylogenetic classification. First being the numerical taxonomy. The number and codes are assigned to all characters. This can be carried out by computers. Hence, at the same time, hundreds of characters can be considered and each character has given equal importance. Cytotaxonomy, based on cytological information like chromosome number, structure and behavior. Chemotaxonomy, this is classification based on chemical constituents of plants. Plant kingdom is classified into 5 subgroups: Algae, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. Let's dwell into the details of the subgroup Algae. They are chlorophyll-bearing, simple and thalloid organisms. Thalloid organism means they resemble a thallus. Thallus means it is a simple body in which cells are not differentiated into tissues. Only cells are present, no tissues. They are autotrophic. That means they can synthesize their own food by photosynthesis. Their habitats are mainly aquatic. They can be freshwater or marine, moist stones, soils and woods. Some are in symbiotic relationship with fungi. Do you remember the name? They are called lichens. Some algae occur in association with animals. Algae are present in the fur of sloth bear. Algae can occur in colonial forms, meaning they are seen as clusters of cells. This is one single cell and they can seen as clusters of cells. Example as in volvox. And some are on simple filamentous form, like for example in Eulothrix and Spirogyra. Spirogyra is like this, a simple filament we can see. Kelps are large brown algae that form massive plant bodies. They can grow as fast as half a meter a day, ultimately reaching up to 30 to 80 meters. Reproduction is by 3 means: vegetative, asexual and sexual. Vegetative reproduction is through fragmentation. Each fragment develops into a thallus. Do you remember the fragmentation in fungi? There a hyphae got detached and developed into a new mycelium. Here in algae, the detached part develops into a thallus. Asexual reproduction happens by spore formation. Among the spores, most common being is zoospores. As discussed in fungi, these asexual spores are produced by mitosis. They are flagellated and hence motile. These spores are easily dispersed by water current and on germination, they can give rise to new plants. Sexual reproduction happens through the fusion of male and female gametes. Isogamy happens in Eulothrix and Spirogyra. Isogamy meaning morphologically similar gametes. Male and female gametes were similar. They fused together to form a new individual. In Eulothrix, the gametes are both flagellated and similar in size. In Spirogyra, both the gametes are non-flagellated and similar in size. Hence, we can say that isogamy happens in them. Anisogamy happens in Eudorina, where the gametes are dissimilar in size. Oogamy happens in Volvox, where a large and non-motile female gamete fuses with a smaller and motile male gamete. Let's learn the uses of algae. They are very useful to human beings. We know that they are photosynthetic, right? Hence, they absorb the carbon dioxide and help to increase the level of oxygen in their immediate environment. Around 50% of total carbon dioxide fixation is carried out by the algae. They are the producers and produce the energy-rich compounds like carbohydrates and lipids, which can be utilized by the aquatic organisms. Porphyra, laminaria, sargassum are used as food. Japanese cuisine contains sargassum as food. It is rich in dietary fiber and essential minerals such as iron, calcium and magnesium. In many Asian countries, laminaria is a part of cuisine. It contains iodine, iron and potassium. Porphyra is used to wrap the rice and fish that compose the Japanese food called sushi and the Korean food as well. Microorganisms like bacteria and viruses are grown in mediums called agar in the laboratories. This agar is obtained from Gelidium and Gracilaria, and they are used in the preparation of ice creams and jellies as well. Chlorella is a unicellular algae and is rich in proteins. It is used as food supplement even by the space travelers. Are you familiar with red and brown algae? Red algae are abundant in marine habitats. Approximately 5% of red algae species occur in freshwater environments with greater concentrations in warmer areas. Phycoerythrin pigments are responsible for the red color. They also contain chlorophyll A and chlorophyll D. Example is Gracilaria. Brown algae are the major seaweeds of the temperate and polar regions. Most brown algae contain the pigment fucoxanthin, which is responsible for the distinctive greenish to brown color, and that gives them their name. It also contains chlorophyll A and chlorophyll C. Example is Laminaria. Both brown and red algae produce large amount of hydrocolloids. Are you familiar with the term hydrocolloids? Hydrocolloids are substances that form a gel in the presence of water. When they mix with water, they form a gel. That is why they are used for wound dressings in hospitals and are widely used in the food industry as thickening, gelling and emulsifying agents. Depending upon the presence of pigments, algae is divided into three classes. Chlorophyceae, which is called the green algae, Phaeophyceae, which is called the brown algae, Rhodophyceae, which is called the red algae. Let's learn in detail. An example of Chlorophyceae is volvox. They are called green algae. Their body is unicellular, may be colonial, that means they may be seen as a group, or filamentous. They can be seen in freshwater and terrestrial habitats. They have pigments chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, and hence they are grass green. We all know that chlorophyll is present in chloroplast, right? Approximately, there are 3,600 species are present in the class Chlorophyceae. The shape of chloroplast might be varying in different species from discoid, plate-like, reticulate meaning cylindrical shape, cup-shaped, spiral or ribbon-shaped. They have storage bodies in their chloroplast called pyrenoids. They are like small compartments inside the chloroplast. Pyrenoids are like compartments inside the chloroplast. Pyrenoids' main function is to act as centers of carbon dioxide fixation. This pyrenoid has a protein core and a starch sheath around it. They store starch and occasionally proteins. Some algae store their food in the form of oil droplets as well. Their cell wall is rigid due to the presence of inner cellulose and outer layer of pectose. Their cell wall is double layered. Inner layer is cellulose and outer layer is pectose. This rigid cell wall gives protection against mechanical and osmotic stress. Vegetative reproduction is by means of fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is by producing zoospores, which are flagellated. These zoospores are produced in structures called zoosporangia. They show variation in sexual reproduction. It can happen by means of isogamy, anisogamy and oogamy. These are the examples of Chlorophyceae: Chlamydomonas, volvox, Eulothrix, Spirogyra and Chara. Phaeophyceae. Example is sargassum. They are known as brown algae. They are mostly marine forms. Do you remember a few minutes ago we discussed about kelps? They are massive plant bodies. They come under this class. Phaeophyceae shows wide variety in their size and form. Massive kelp comes under this. At the same time, it includes simple branched and filamentous algae like Ectocarpus. Chlorophyceae possesses chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, whereas Phaeophyceae possesses chlorophyll A and chlorophyll C along with carotenoids and xanthophyll. Their color may vary from olive green to shades of brown, and the credit goes to the amount of xanthophyll present in them. A type of xanthophyll called fucoxanthin is present in them, which help to transfer the light energy to the chlorophyll and hence help in the photosynthesis. We know that starch is stored in pyrenoids in Chlorophyceae, but in Phaeophyceae, food is stored as complex carbohydrates like laminarin or mannitol. Laminarin and mannitol are types of carbohydrates. Their vegetative cells, that means the cells other than the sex cells, have cellulose wall covered by a gelatinous coating of algin, which is a carbohydrate. That means their cells have a gelatinous coating that is known as algin. This algin is extracted from brown algae, has many uses. It is used for waterproofing and fireproofing the fabrics, in the food industry as thickening agents for drinks, ice creams. Then it is used in cosmetics, and it is used as a gelling agent for jellies. This is an algal structure for your understanding. The algal body is attached to a substratum by means of roots-like structures. It is known as holdfast. This helps the algae to get fixed on a substratum, which also helps the algae from being carried away by water current. It has a stalk called the stipe. A stipe can be short structure near the holdfast or it can grow very large. Its inside part of the stipe is hollow and is filled with gas. You know why? That helps the algae to remain buoyant. There is a leaf-like organ called the frond that helps in photosynthesis. You might be familiar with protoplast, right? It means the entire cell excluding cell wall, or cell without cell wall is protoplast. Protoplast of Phaeophyceae contains plastids, vacuole and nucleus. Plastids used for storing food. Centrally located vacuole is there, which stores salts, minerals, pigments and proteins. And there is a centrally located nucleus as well. Vegetative reproduction is by means of fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is by forming zoospores. They are pear-shaped and have two unequal laterally attached flagella. Sexual reproduction can happen by isogamy, anisogamy and oogamy. Gametes are fused together mostly in water. However, in oogamous species, meaning the species where the sexual reproduction happens by oogamy, the fusion happens in structures called oogonium. Gametes are pear-shaped and hence called pyriform and bear two laterally attached flagella. Examples of Phaeophyceae are Ectocarpus, Dictyota, Laminaria, Sargassum and Fucus. Going on to Rhodophyceae, the red algae. They contain the red pigment R-phycoerythrin. You can remember this in an easier way. You know erythrocytes or red blood cells, right? They have red color. They are called erythrocytes. Thus, you can relate it with phycoerythrin, which is also red in color. Few minutes earlier, we discussed about them as they are marine forms and are found in warmer areas. They can be present in well-lighted regions of the oceans, which means close to the surface, and also they can be present at the bottom where there is very little light available. Their thallus is multicellular and they store food as foridine starch, that is more highly branched than amylopectin. Floridine starch is stored as grains outside the chloroplast. Vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is by the formation of non-motile spores called monospores. Till now we saw that is in green algae and brown algae, asexual reproduction happens by motile spores called zoospores. But in Rhodophyceae, asexual reproduction happens through monospores. They are walled, non-flagellate and spherical cells. They are carried by water currents and upon germination they produce a new organism. Sexual reproduction is by oogamy. Example are Porphyra, Gracilaria and Gelidium. Till now we learnt about the three classes of algae. Chlorophyceae, that is a green algae, Phaeophyceae, that is a brown algae, and Rhodophyceae, that is the red algae. Now we are moving on to the next subgroup in plant kingdom, that is the Bryophytes. Examples of Bryophytes are mosses and liverworts. They grow in shaded, damp and humid areas. They are known as amphibians of plant kingdom. Amphibians can live in water and land, right? Similarly, Bryophytes live in soil, but they depend on water for their sexual reproduction. That is why they are known as amphibians of plant kingdom. They play an important role in plant succession on bare rocks. Plant succession means one after another, different species of plants are growing in an area where there was no organisms grown before. For example, take a barren rock. Is there any plant there? No, right? First, the spores of lichen falls on the rock by wind current. They can survive on rocks as they are taking nourishment from the atmosphere, not from the soil. Then they first colonize the rock. Lichens first colonize on the rock. When they grow and die, organic matter accumulates. So when this organic matter get accumulated in the holes of the rocks, small parts of rocks are crushed into soil. Then comes our area of importance, the mosses. They grow there, which gives shelter to the small plant-eating organisms. When mosses and these plant-eating organisms die, again organic matter accumulates and humus is formed, which will lead to the growth of higher and higher plants. Thus we can say bryophytes play a major role in plant succession on bare rocks. Their body is more complex than algae. They have thallus and they can stand erect on a substratum by means of unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. They have root-like, stem-like, leaf-like structures, but not true root, stem and leaves are present. True root, stem, leaves are absent, but there are structures similar to them. The main plant body of bryophytes is called haploid in nature. This is haploid in nature as they have only one set of chromosomes and it produces the gametes and hence called gametophyte. The other phase of life cycle is called the sporophyte. Here, this is a gametophyte. In this gametophyte, there is a male branch and there is a female branch. The male branch has the male sex organ, the antheridium, which produces the antherozoids, which are the male gametes. You can see these male gametes have two flagella. The female branch has female sex organ called archegonium that is flask shaped and at its base there is a single egg is produced. Release of the mature male gamete and the process of fertilization require moist in the form of heavy dew or raindrops. When the raindrops got trapped on the tip of the gametophyte, the male gametes are released into the water droplet. Let's learn in detail. The neck of the archegonium, that is the female organ, is a single thread of cells that forms the neck canal. This is the neck canal cells. When mature and completely moist by the raindrop, the neck canal cells of the archegonium disintegrate, releasing a column of fluid to the neck canal and surrounding water. But the egg remains in the base of the archegonium ready for fertilization. Here you can see the neck canal cells got disintegrated, but still the single egg is there at the base. During rain, at the splash of water, the male gametes reaches the female organ where the fluid from archegonium is present. Here the water will get trapped on the tip of the gametophyte. Male gametes can easily reach at the mouth of the archegonium through the water. Then with the help of flagella, the male gamete swims towards the site of greatest concentration of the fluid and therefore down the neck canal to the egg. When these gametes fuse together, a zygote is formed. It is a single cell which is diploid in nature and reduction division or meiosis is not happening in them immediately. Instead, mitotic division happens and the single cell divides into multicellular structure called the sporophyte. This is the sporophyte. Zygote undergoes mitotic division and forms the sporophyte. This sporophyte is attached to the main plant body, that is a gametophyte, which is photosynthetic. Thus the sporophyte will get nourishment and it will grow. These are the mature sporophyte. Later it undergoes reduction division, that is a meiosis happens and produce the haploid spores. These haploid spores are released into the wind and when it falls down in a wetland, it can grow into a new gametophyte. The dominant phase in the life cycle of Bryophyta is the gametophyte. Sporophyte appears for a short span of time. Now let's learn what are the uses of bryophytes. Some provide food for herbaceous mammals, meaning mammals that only eat plants like reindeer, birds and animals. Sphangum provides a peat, a brown deposit resembling soil, which can be used as a fuel and as a packing material for the shipment of living materials, as they have the capacity to hold water. We already learned that they help in plant succession. Bryophytes are divided into two, liverworts and mosses. Let's learn about liverworts. They live in banks of rivers, marshy grounds, damp soil, bark of moist trees and deep in the woods. Its body has thallus. Example is Marchantia. This is Marchantia. Its body has a thallus and thallus is dorsoventral, meaning it has a dorsal surface, the outer surface under this, and the inner surface, that is the ventral surface. They are attached to a substratum. This is a substratum. Some have tiny leaf-like structures on their stem. Asexual reproduction is by fragmentation, where the thallus detached from the body and grow into a new individual. Another method of asexual reproduction is by formation of gemma. They are actually buds which are green and multicellular. These gemma develop on special structures on the thallus called gemma cups. These gemma got detached from the parent body during asexual reproduction and can grow into a new individual. Sexual reproduction is, like we discussed earlier, by the fusion of male and female gametes. The sex organs are formed in the same or different thallus. After fertilization, the sporophyte, which is produced by mitosis, its body gets differentiated into a foot, seta and capsule. Then comes the meiosis phase, and at the end of meiosis, spores are produced in the capsule. Then they are released into the wind on a suitable condition and can germinate to form new individuals. Sphangum or peat moss is an example of mosses. In case of mosses, the spores germinate to form filaments. Here you can see these are the spores. They germinate to form filaments. They are creeping on the land, green in color and branched. This filamentous stage is known as protonema. They are haploid in nature. From them, morphologically similar branches called secondary protonema are produced, and they are rich in chlorophyll. This stage initiates the accumulation of hormones that influence the further growth of the newly formed cells. When specific concentration of hormones are reached, the branches of protonema generate small buds. These are the small buds. And these buds give rise to the leaves. They are attached to the soil by means of rhizoid, small roots. At this leafy stage, the sex organs like antheridiophore or archegonium are produced. Antheridiophore is the male organ and archegonium is the female one. Sexual reproduction is same as in the case of liverworts. Antheridium contains the flagellated male gametes. This is a male gamete with two flagella, and archegonium contains egg. Here you can see small eggs at the base of archegonium. This flagellated male gametes swims through the water into the egg, which is situated at the base of the archegonium. That leads to fertilization. After fertilization, it gives rise to a sporophyte stage, which is still attached to the gametophyte, and they bear capsule at their tips. These are the capsules. Spores are produced inside the capsules. When it matures, the capsule breaks to spread the spores in air, and the life cycle continues. Again they generate into protonema and then gametophyte, then the fertilization happens and the sporophyte stage again comes. This life cycle continues. Now comes the next subgroup in the plant kingdom, the Pteridophyta. Example, horsetails and ferns. They are the first terrestrial plants to have xylem and phloem. They are the vascular tissue. Similar to bryophytes, they also grow in marshy and damp, shady places. However, some grow in sandy soil as well. Contradictory to bryophytes, the dominant phase in pteridophytes is sporophyte stage. In bryophytes, the dominant phase is gametophyte, but in pteridophytes, the dominant phase is sporophyte. The main plant body, sporophyte, is differentiated into a true root, stem and leaves. Vascular tissues like xylem and phloem are present in them, like we already discussed. The size of leaves may vary in different species. In Selaginella, the leaves are small, called microphyls, and in ferns, the leaves are large, called macrophyls or megaphyls. Sporophyte or the main plant body contains leaves called sporophyll that bears sporangia. Sporophyll means just the leaves. These leaves contains sporangia. Here you can see sporangia. This is the larger version, sporangia in the leaves, that is the sporophylls. Both the microphylls, that is the small leaves, and megaphylls, that is the big leaves, contain sporangia. This sporangia has spore mother cell from which the spores are produced by meiosis. From spore mother cell, spores are produced by meiosis, reduction division. These spores, when germinate, give rise to the multicellular photosynthetic free-living thalloid gametophyte. These gametophytes are called prothallus. These prothallus require shady and damp places to grow. As they need water for fertilization, pteridophytes are limited to the geographical area where rain is plenty. This is the gametophyte. Gametophyte bears the male sex organ, the antheridia, and the female sex organ, the archegonia. The male gametes are released through the water from the mouth of the antheridium to the archegonium. Then the fusion of male gamete and the egg takes place, which gives rise to a zygote. It undergoes mitotic division. Zygote undergoes mitotic division and develop into multicellular sporophyte, which is the dominant phase in the life cycle of pteridophytes. In most of the pteridophytes, the spores are similar in size and shape, which are known as homospores. However, in genera like Selaginella and Salvinia, there are micro and macrospores. Then they are known as heterospores. The macrospore, which is the big spore, give rise to female gametophyte, and microspore, which is a small spore, give rise to male gametophyte. The development of zygote into an embryo takes place in the female gametophyte. Hence, they are retained in the parent sporophyte for a long time. Pteridophytes are divided into 4 classes: Coelopsida, Lycopsida, Sphenopsida, Pteropsida. Coelopsida example is Coelotum. Example of Lycopsida are Selaginella and Lycopodium. Example of Sphenopsida is Equistum, and examples of Pteropsida are Dryopteris and Adiantum. Moving on to the other subgroup in plant kingdom, Gymnosperms. Gymnosperms means naked seeds. In them, the ovules are exposed. That means they are not present inside an ovary wall. They remain open or exposed even before and after fertilization. Normally, the ovules develop into the seeds and ovary into the fruits, right? But as the ovules are exposed, the developed seeds are also exposed. Gymnosperms include shrubs and medium sizes to tall trees. Have you heard about sequoia? Sequoia is a giant redwood tree and is the most massive tree on earth. They have tap roots. Taproot is a straight, tapering root growing vertically downwards and forming center from which the branches develops. Some roots show the symbiotic relationship with fungi called mycorrhiza, which we learned in the kingdom fungi. Cycas has special roots called coralloid roots, which has an association with nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. Stems are branched as in the case of Cycas and unbranched in the case of Pinus. Leaves are simple and compound. In Cycas, pinnate leaves are found which will stay for years. You might be knowing that in pinnate leaves the lamina is divided into multiple leaflets. The leaves of gymnosperms have many adaptations to withstand the extreme temperature, humidity and wind. For example, in conifers, the leaves are needle-shaped to minimize water loss as they reduce the surface area. The thick cuticle and sunken stomata also are adaptations to reduce water loss. Sunken stomata are found beneath the epidermis and beneath the leaves of the plants, as you know. The reproductive structure in gymnosperms are called the cone or strobili. This is the strobili. There are two types of spores present in them called microspores and megaspores. Microspores give rise to pollen grain, which is the male structure, and megaspore give rise to ovule, which is the female structure. The male cone or strobili has microsporophyll. Sporophyll simply means leaves. Small leaves are there in male cones, that is the microsporophylls. They are arranged spirally on a central axis. These microsporophylls contain microsporangia. And inside the microsporangia, you can see microspores are produced. A microspore mother cell is there, and this microspore mother cell undergoes meiotic division and produces 4 microspores. Each of these 4 microspores develops into a pollen grain. The male strobili, this is also called microsporangia. Now comes the female structure, the female strobili. This is the female strobili, and females contain megasporophyll. Males contain microsporophyll, females contain megasporophyll. These megasporophyll contain ovules. These are the ovules. And inside the ovule, megasporangium or nucellus is present. One of the cells of this megasporangium or nucellus becomes the megaspore mother cell. And this megaspore mother cell undergo meiotic division like in the case of male strobili, and 4 haploid megaspores are produced. One of the megaspores develop into a multicellular female gametophyte, and the female gametophyte bears 2 or more specialized structures called the archegonia, which are the female sex organ. The male and female gametophytes remain within the sporangium. We already learned that some of the microspores develop into pollen grains. These pollen grains are released into the air, and through wind they reach the mouth of the ovules. There arises a pollen tube. This pollen tube carries the pollen grains to the mouth of the archegonia and discharges them there. Then fertilization happens and zygote develops into an embryo, and the ovules develop into seeds. In gymnosperms, these seeds are not covered inside an ovary wall. Now moving on to the uses of gymnosperms. Gymnosperms have major economic uses. Pine, fir, spruce and cedar are all examples of conifers that are used for timber, paper production and resin. Some other common uses for gymnosperms are in the production of soap, varnish, nail polish, gum and perfumes. Now let's learn about the last subgroup in plant kingdom, the Angiosperms. They are known as flowering plants. Smallest Wolfia to tall trees eucalyptus are there in Angiosperms. We learned that gymnosperms, the ovules or seeds are naked, right? However, in Angiosperms, the pollen grains and ovules are developed inside the flowers and seeds are enclosed in the fruits. They are the largest and most diverse group within the kingdom Plantae with about 3 lakh species. Angiosperms represent approximately 80% of the all non-living green plants. We can see a wide range of sizes in them. Their uses: they provide food like fruits, fodder food, especially dried hay or straw for cattle and other livestock, then fuel, medicines. Some angiosperm compounds that are highly toxic to humans have proved to be effective in the treatment of certain forms of cancer, such as acute leukemia and of heart problems. Angiosperms are divided into 2 classes, dicotyledons and monocotyledons. In dicotyledons, the seed has 2 embryonic leaves or cotyledons. Examples of dicotyledons are beans and pea, and in monocotyledons, the seeds have only 1 embryonic leaf or 1 cotyledon. Examples are wheat and rice. That's it about the chapter Plant Kingdom. If you like this video, please share it with your friends. If you have any queries, put it in the comment box. Thank you.